Hello and welcome to the show. This is Everything Under the Sun. My name is Ty. Hope all of you have been doing incredible and enjoying yourselves and enjoying the summer so far. It's been very hot so far with some of the places that I've been. I've been traveling around quite a bit, which is why the podcasts haven't really been coming in as much, but I'm trying to get them in as much as possible. But yeah, I think this summer and this year really it's for me is about really fully moving towards the enjoyment of life. It's like life is meant to be enjoyed. And oftentimes we forget that. We get caught in the mire of work and, stresses and other situations and other people's problems and world problems and things like that. And we forget that right in here in our face, in our moment, in our life, there are so many things to appreciate. There's so many things to enjoy. And every time the sun comes up and it's a beautiful day, it's something to enjoy. Every time it starts raining and it's a day inside, that's something that I enjoy as well too, because living here on Maui, this is something that I know many people wouldn't complain about, but every day is almost very, very beautiful. And the times when it is raining, it makes me feel good about like just being inside and being able to just not have to feel obligated to leave. Because whenever it's nice outside, we feel like, maybe I should be doing something. We start getting down on ourselves for not being active or proactive, whatever that looks like. But, it's important to just enjoy this life and this experience as much as possible in each and every moment, because we don't know the next one's going to be guaranteed or not. It's only this moment now that we're living in. So enjoying that to the best of our ability is something that's so, so important. And what I really wanted to speak about in this episode is kind of along those lines with, so many other distractions that are happening in the world, things that seem to grab our attention and keep us from the happiness that we wish to experience, the freedom, the stress-freeness of life that we wish to experience. But there are all these other things in the world and these situations that are near and far that seem to plague our experience and keep us from really focusing on our enjoyment. And a lot of those things have a lot of energy behind them. There's a lot of things that we've been wrapped up in since we were very, very small, and those emotions and that tumult in the way that we express ourselves in certain situations come from that, and they stem from that. There's a lot of energy in that direction. So it can be very hard to stop focusing on something that seems to plague you. It can be hard to stop focusing on the problems in the world because they seem like they're so abundant right in front of our face. There's so many times where we feel like we cannot escape the aggravation that people and situations may bring, because maybe the situation is our job and the people are our coworkers. There's so many of these things that seem to keep us from the happiness that we desire for ourselves. And what's very, very important for us to do, or to learn how to do, is to look away. Look away from those things. Distract yourself in whatever way you possibly can, because there's so much energy towards it that if you were to sit down with one of those problems and say, I want to move this problem from where it's at, aggravation, to a place of peace and harmony within myself. If you were to try to sit down with that problem and move it in that way without any type of stable ground to go off of, then you're just going to get more and more aggravated. And what I mean by stable ground is there are situations that we have a reactive emotion to it. It just seems like it's very instinctual. We're not actively trying to do that. It just kind of happens. Someone maybe just brings in aggravation. Every time you see them, aggravation just kind of fills your experience. And it's in those situations that there's a lot of momentum going for that. There's a lot of energy behind those situations. And if we were to just sit down and think about that person or that situation without having some kind of stable ground to go off of, some kind of feeling that, I can look at the situation and not be reactive in an emotion. Unless you have that stable ground, you're going to fall back into that problem, into that situation, into that aggravation. Up until that moment that we can feel that we are stable enough to approach a situation and not be reactive towards it, until that moment, look away from that thing. Don't look at it. And so many people, in our society, and if you've kind of done therapy and things like that, there are some therapists that move towards the idea of, this is the problem, let's look at it. Let's really focus on the problem. And sometimes it can be good if you're working with a therapist, someone from an outside perspective, because working with it internally, you can start to cycle within your own mind and you want to get out of it, and that's like a cycle moving forward, but then you find yourself thinking about another aspect of it and you fall back into the same kind of system. So having an outside perspective can be unique, but really we don't really speak about this much in therapy, but really it's distracting yourself. It's moving your attention away from the situation or the problem in completion. If the problem and the aggravation is coming from work, then try to think about something different. If you're at work and you seem to be in the problem that seems to aggravate you the most, then distract yourself. We daydream all the time. But oftentimes when we're at a place that we do not want to be, the daydreams are just a recreation of what already exists, and they're not very dreamy. They're very aggravating because they just bring in all the elements of the situation that we're in already. We start creating stories within our own mind about coworkers and situations like, oh, like that person's always doing that. I bet down the line that they're going to keep doing that, or I bet tomorrow I'm going to have to deal with the same situation. We start foreshadowing certain events that haven't even happened yet, and we're imagining these things, and they bring aggravation. It's up to us to find those things that help to distract us and look away from those things that have so much energy towards it that we know that we can't look at it without being angry. We can step away from a situation, a problem, something that can be very, very real in the world. We can look away from those things, find peace within ourselves, find stability within ourselves, and then try to come at it again. Once we're at a place that we feel a little bit more calm. And if you go and approach that situation again and you see that the emotion is still there, it's still so moving that you feel like you're trapped in it, distract yourself again. And it's not about actively thinking about something different. It's like, I'm not going to think about that. I'm going to focus on this. It's literally finding something to distract yourself. Television is a great way to distract yourself. Music is a great way to distract yourself. Going on a walk, hanging out with friends, having a conversation that's completely off topic. All of these things, and there are many things that may work for you. Maybe it's working on an art project or some kind of creative thing where you really just focus all of your attention on that thing and you're not thinking about anything else. We have all of these mechanisms within us. We know that within ourselves that there are certain things that we can do that will distract us from a problem that seems so big. Move towards that distraction. And now it's not saying to stay in that distraction, but it's important for you to realize that that distraction feels a little bit better. And what we're doing is noticing the feelings that we feel. You recognize the aggravation. You know that you feel bad when you feel that aggravation, when you feel that stress, when you feel that worry. It doesn't feel good. We're very familiar with the unpleasant feelings. It's about getting familiar with the pleasant feelings, the feelings that feel just a little more light, the ones that feel like, I'm not doing anything right now in particular, but I feel good. I feel at peace. I feel like there's nothing that is really pulling me towards anything. And it can be just by doing nothing at all. And then in those moments, we just gradually move more and more into greater and greater feelings, heightened feelings of things that we really want to experience. So when we find ourselves allowing peace in these situations, when we find ourselves allowing ourselves to let go of things that burden us, we start to realize that happiness and joy and peace and relaxation, these things feel good. And of course, as you hear this, you're like, yeah, of course those things feel good. But we forget in the moments how important it is to feel that good. We forget in the moments that we want to feel that good because we're so focused on being right. It's like, yeah, this job is terrible. It doesn't pay me enough for my energy and what I feel is my self-worth. These people around me, they're toxic. These are real things. These are actual things. And it's like, yes, those things may be very, very accurate. All the observations that you are observing may be true. But in your observation of them, does it feel good? And that's what we have to work with. It's the feeling. It's not necessarily changing the circumstances or the situations that already are. It's about moving into a feeling that feels a little bit better with circumstances being exactly as they are. And if we can't find ourselves in a happy place by focusing on this job that I do not like and not worth my time and energy, and surrounded by these toxic people who bring me down, instead of focusing on those things in that environment, maybe we can focus on something else. Maybe I can try to distract myself with something else. Maybe I can put one of these tiny little headphones in and listen to some music. Maybe I can, just do something to get myself in a better place in this moment. I don't have to change anything around me, but what I prioritize within myself is my happiness and my joy and my peace. And since the circumstances around me may not change as fast as my emotions will, I'm going to focus on my emotions. And now the bigger the situation, the harder it will be to move your mind in that direction. But as we find ourselves allowing ourselves to look away for the moment from something that is so heavy, we can allow ourselves that time to breathe, that time to recuperate, that time to rebuild and create a more stable foundation and approach it at a different angle. Approach it at a different vantage point. And this is really what the use of a therapist is when we're so stuck in the problem. They are looking at a different vantage point because they're not you. They're not experiencing what you're experiencing from within yourself. And this is why no one will be as wise as you are about yourself. You can speak to the most intuitive therapist that there is, but you are the one that's experiencing your life. You're the one that's experiencing this experience. So it's up to you to recognize the tools that help you to take a breath and take in the realization that happiness and joy and peace and abundance are things that you desire for yourself, and that you prioritize that over all of the other woes that seem to be around us in the world. And we don't have to attack them all at once. We don't even have to look at them all right now. We can just focus on something that brings us a little bit more peace, a little bit more stability within ourselves. And it may not seem like we're building a foundation, but as you prioritize your peace and your happiness and your joy in each and every moment, no matter how small it is, you are adding to that foundation. You're adding a greater stability to that and affirming to yourself that joy and happiness and peace and abundance, those are things that is what I am now identifying as. Those are the things that I am focusing my attention on now. These other things I've been focusing on, they bring me down. They don't allow me the expression that I feel I want for myself. And I may not be able to look at all of them and resolve all of them right this moment, but I don't have to. They will resolve in the time that they're meant to resolve. And as we do this internal work to prioritize our happiness and our peace and our abundance, there are many things that you may forget. And they may arise in your life at a certain time, and you will look at them and you'll say, wow, this looked a lot bigger many years ago. This looked a lot bigger a few weeks ago, before I started to, look away and start focusing on my own happiness, my own peace, my own strength, the resilience that I have within myself. We remind ourselves of that when we move towards things that are better for us, things that feel better for us. And you are the only one that knows what is better for you. So allow yourself to look away from situations that are too heavy. Look towards something that feels a little bit better. And as time goes on in that direction of moving towards something that feels just a little bit better, these situations, they will seem smaller and smaller until they are so insignificant that they are no longer in your life. We don't remove these things by force. We don't force these thoughts to be eliminated from our mind. Where are they going? When you close your eyes and you think about your thoughts, you're not even seeing any words. Thoughts are non-tangible. You cannot force them away, but you can shrink your awareness of their vibration by focusing on a vibration that feels a little bit better. Like laying in the sun, sitting on the grass and having a little picnic in the backyard, talking to someone that you love, giving a hug to someone, watching a show that you like, listening to music, eating good food. All these things are so pleasant. There's so many pleasantries in this life that we can distract ourselves with. And many of us don't like the word distraction because we feel as though if it's distracting us, that means that there's something important that we should be looking at. But the important things, and I say important in quotes, the important things are the things that bring us down. Those are the so-called important things that we seem to feel that we have to focus our attention on, and that is just not true. What is important is your well-being. You can't perceive any of the things in the world. You can't change anything in the world if you yourself are not doing well. If you yourself are being beaten down by the world. value and recognize your happiness and look away from the things that do not bring you those things, you will find yourself in a greater situation. You will find yourself enjoying life more. And those problems will be so small that they will no longer be a plague in your life. But it just takes looking away. So that's all I really have for this episode. If you have any thoughts or ideas or anything I'd like to share, you can send that to everything.sunpodcast@gmail.com. You can join any of the social media groups: Instagram, everything.sunpodcast, Twitter @everysunpodcast, the Facebook group @everysunpodcast, and the YouTube page @everysunpodcast. I still haven't really posted too much on any of my social medias, but I am working on that and kind of wanting to get that more consistent. So look out for that. There's no promises on when that time frame is. Again, I'm still focusing on traveling, but if anyone wants to reach out, I'm always happy to hear from people and speak to anyone and work with anyone on any capacity. So yeah, any questions at all, ideas, thoughts, send those in, and I'd love to hear from you. And yeah, that's all I got. Love you all so much, and I'll talk to you soon.